Good morning, Team Purple. Are you all ready for Power Up 23?
Yes!
Okay, I don't know if you've ever done this before, but shall we do that again? Because I've been in here since 7:30 this morning. Paul, who's kindly working the tech for us, has been here since earlier than me, so we need waking up as well. Are you all ready for Power Up 2023?
Yes!
That's better. We're going to make some noise this morning. We're going to get you energized. That's going to be part of it. We're going to talk about creating connections, even for the folk down the front who don't need to know anymore. We're going to talk about creating connections because you have never, ever had more of an opportunity to help people in this country save money or make money. You have never had more of an opportunity to help with what everyone in the country is worrying about and talking about. Except maybe for Jacob Rees-Mogg. I was worrying whether I'd get away with that or whether it was too political. But whilst everyone in the country is worrying about saving money, making money, whatever it happens to be, you folk have this unique opportunity to help them and to help yourselves as well. So we're going to talk this morning about creating connections. We're going to talk about how to start conversations with people, whether that's at networking events, which is my background, as you might know. We'll talk about that in a second. Whether that's in real life, whether that's online. We're going to talk about how to start conversations with people, how to continue those conversations, how to do that thing about building trust with the people that you meet and connect with so that they know whether they can trust you enough to refer their people to you, to do business with you, to switch their utilities to you, or become partners and start a business with you. And we're going to talk about how to turn those conversations into actual new customers and new partners, how to actually turn those conversations into helping people to either save money or make money. Does all that make sense? Yeah. Great. We've got about 20 minutes of this. I'll make sure that you all get away on time, but that's what we're going to talk about. For people who haven't met me before, my name's Stefan Thomas. I speak for a living these days. This is what I do. I travel around talking to various audiences about networking and leadership and sales and communication. My parents are the other people who are wondering when I'm going to get a proper job. We've got about 15 minutes left, and that was the best joke, so, you know, I was expecting a slightly better laugh. I've written a few books along the way. I'm the author of a book called Business Networking for Dummies, another book called Instant Networking, and a book called Win the Room, which I wrote with a chap called Wes Linden, and am enormously proud of all three of those books. So I do get to write stuff down as well as speak. I speak for quite a lot of audiences around the place. I've managed to skip a slide. I speak for quite a lot of audiences around the place, that'll do, including places like Oxford Brookes University, Lloyds Bank, Utility Warehouse, Team Purple, and all sorts of other companies and organisations around the country. Getting up and ending up driving to Telford on a Friday night and then standing up and speaking. This is what I do. And why do I still do it? Why do I still? We drove 3 hours yesterday in the rain all the way up to Telford to come and talk to you folk. They were right about me not getting any sympathy, weren't they? I know that you've all driven as well. We drove up here last night because every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. Coming to events like this, as the folk down on the front are doing already, this is where you'll build really valuable connections. This is where you'll get the motivation and the inspiration to carry on with your business. So coming to events like this, we still do it as often as possible because this is where we get to start those little conversations. So talking about networking, talking about communications, this is what I do for a living. But then in real life, this is who I am. I'm Stefan. I'm married to Sharon, who's floating around at the back at the moment taking photos. We were married in 2021. We're less than 2 years in at the moment. We've got 5 kids between us, Joe and Fran and George and Miles and Patch, who we love dearly most of the time. Three of them are mine, Joe and George and Patch. Fran and Miles are my stepkids. And outside of this, and outside of being married, and outside of being a dad, I've been to something over 700 punk and rock concerts since I started this little journey back as a teenager. That's me just before lockdown seeing Dropkick Murphys at Alexandra Palace. If anyone in the room is familiar with Dropkick Murphys, I'll be very, very impressed. Sharon was right, it's just me, isn't it? So that's me, that's who I am in real life, that's what I do. Where my journey started... Yeah. I was. That's me. Around the time my journey started, 1983, when I started working in a shoe shop, Manfield Shoes, in Cornmarket Street in Oxford. The photo is from about 1985, actually. It's the closest I could get. I'm doing a better job with the facial hair now than I was then, frankly. I thought I could grow a moustache. But I learned about this whole thing about building rapport. What we now talk about in networking is the know, like, and trust. That process, after you've met someone, when they start to decide whether they like you, when they get to know you, and then they decide whether they trust you, in your case, enough to either switch their utilities to you or to become a partner and start a business with you. What I learned back in 1983 was in 20 minutes how to build that rapport, how to build that trust with people after they'd come into the gents department at Manfield Shoes, so that they would, as well as buying shoes, so that they would buy some Scotchgard from us as well. If you've ever wondered why they have people working in shoe shops, it's so that they can upsell you on the Scotchgard as well as the shoes. So in 1983, my job was to get people to spend $19.99 on a pair of shoes, 1983, but also to spend 99p on a tin of Scotchgard. So I learned how to quickly build rapport with people so that they would take that advice from me. And I've continued that whole journey through. I ended up running networking events back around 2010 and was running around 5,000 networking events in the UK a year. And in networking, we talk about the know, like, and trust, the whole building rapport thing, how we work with people so that they have the information so that they can decide whether they trust us. It's not about persuading them. It's about them deciding whether they trust us enough to do business with us. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. So what a lot of people get wrong is that we feel that we have to talk about business or the business really early in the conversation. And actually, every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. And I'm emphasizing on the little bit of that quite a lot. I got chatting on Twitter to a guy called Wes Linden in November 2014. We'd never met. We didn't know each other at that stage. Wes and I got chatting through a mutual contact. I was talking about postcards. My grandmother, I'm 53. It won't take much to work out that my grandmother doesn't really do social media. But my grandmother in 2014, and thanks God still now, gets postcards from me. I use a little app on my phone so that instead of Tetty, that's her name, looking on Facebook to see what I'm up to, she gets a postcard from me about every week. And I got chatting about that on Twitter in 2014, and this guy called Wes Linden pops up and says, "Great tip, Steph. Do they send via email or is it an actual postcard?" And that was our first conversation. A couple of months later, Wes worked out that I'd written the book about networking, and I already knew Wes through his reputation, his very good reputation. A couple of months later, we ended up meeting for coffee. I never said to Wes in those first conversations, "Right then, how about we book me as a speaker at one of your events?" Wes never asked me if I knew how much I was paying for my gas and electricity. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. We just started chatting. And as a result of that, over time, we ended up writing the book together. And actually, Wes, and I know some of you were there, Wes gave me my first big opportunity speaking on stage at his kickoff event 2016 in High Wycombe, one of my first very big speaking gigs. We started the conversation as humans. We didn't try and shoehorn, which isn't a pun based on my previous career, we didn't try and shoehorn, but it works though, doesn't it? I should have thought of that earlier. We didn't try and shoehorn the whole business thing into it, because it happens naturally. Networking skills are for life, not just for breakfast. I got a better laugh for that one in 2016, honestly. Very often, when I talk about networking, if my sessions are labelled as being about networking, people think that they're just for the weird folk amongst us who get up and go to breakfast networking events, which I've done rather a lot of, about 1,500 of them over time. But networking skills aren't just about those folk who go to networking events. That whole skill of building conversations with people is for the rest of your life, not just about breakfast. It's about starting conversations with people. And the world has opened up to you. The world has massively opened up to you. How many of you go to some sort of networking events as part of your business? Great stuff. Brilliant. Even if you can't get to physical networking events, even if you don't like cooked breakfasts, I've been vegetarian since 1984. I've never actually eaten a breakfast that looks like that, but that's what everyone, there it is, that's what everyone thinks a cooked breakfast looks like. Even if you can't get to physical networking events, there's so much that you can do. There's virtual networking events. How many of you are doing virtual networking events as part of what you do? Yeah, great, okay. Slightly different set of hands, actually, so that's good, that's interesting. Just from the comfort of your room, just from the comfort of your home, you can now attend networking events without having to travel, without having to go anywhere, without having to eat a breakfast that you didn't really want in the first place. It's really time efficient. I still like going places and shaking hands with people and seeing people, but it's really efficient to go to virtual networking events. It's opened up this whole opportunity for you. Every town, every area has at least one virtual networking event that you could see if you could get along to. And it's worth looking at it, because they're filled with business people who might be looking for a side hustle, might be looking for a part-time business, might be looking for something else to do alongside their business, might be looking for something to do instead of their business, or just might be looking to save money. I would thoroughly recommend getting along to networking events whenever you can. Even if you can't get along to networking events, I've talked about LinkedIn on this slide. I'm going to expand that to talk about Facebook as well. I use social media slightly differently to how people expect. Everyone thinks that social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever it happens to be, everyone thinks that's about what you post, what you put out there. But I use things in a slightly different way. Every post on Facebook, every post on LinkedIn is a mini networking event that I've been invited to. Just have a think about the logic behind this. If I post something on Facebook or LinkedIn, or if you share something from UW, or if you put one of the posts out there that I'm friends with a lot of Team Purple, I get to see a lot of the same posts copied and pasted over and over again. If you post that, you're reliant on the person that you want to read it logging onto their computer or their phone that day. I'm told that not everyone does Facebook constantly like I do. I'm told that not everyone logs in all the time. You're dependent on the algorithms, which none of us really understand, actually serving it to the people that you want to see it. So if you post something, imagine if I posted something that I really wanted all of you folk to read, and I'd posted it at 9 o'clock this morning. And nobody going to see it until Sunday or Monday, and by that time Facebook and LinkedIn will stop serving it to you anyway. So I'll tell you what I do an awful lot of. I make sure that my Facebook profile, my LinkedIn profile, my Instagram profile tells people what I do for a living, and then I go and engage on other people's posts. I don't jump in there and say, that's brilliant, do you need a speaker? That's brilliant, do you want to save money? I just engage on other people's posts like a human being. Every post on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram is a mini networking event, and you've been invited to it. There is nothing to stop you, and I do this all the time. Go and simply engaging. When I was booked to speak by Lloyds Bank, I had met someone called Paul McCluskey, head of professional practices at Lloyds Bank. I met him at an event just like this, a networking event. 18 months later, when Paul came to organising his sales conference, he said, well, I couldn't ignore you, could I? When I came to think about which speaker should I book, you were the first person I thought of. Because every time I logged onto LinkedIn, up in my notifications, it said Stefan Thomas has liked, Stefan Thomas has commented, Stefan Thomas has shared your post. You were the first person I thought of. You can be in that position when people come to the point when they want to switch out their utilities, when they come to the point where another provider makes them really fed up. I was going to use another word. Where another provider makes them really fed up. You can be the first people that someone thinks of when they think, okay, we really ought to do something about our pension. We really ought to do something about protecting ourselves. You can really be the first people that people think of when they want to save money and make money. I try and make myself the first people that someone thinks of when they think about buying a speaker. Just go and engage on other people's posts. I've written a load of stuff about networking. I've written a load of stuff about social media. But the best book that was ever written about social media was written in 1937 by a guy called Dale Carnegie. The book is called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Has anyone read it? Great. If you haven't read it, do go and buy that book on Amazon. And I'm just going to say, whilst you're on Amazon as well, I'll get away with it. They'll need to chop that bit out of the video, otherwise I'll be sacked. I won't. But in How to Win Friends and Influence People, I took myself off track then by aggressively trying to sell my books. In How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie says that you'll win more friends in 2 months by being interested in them than you will in 2 years by trying to be interesting to them. And the mistake that so many of us make is that we go out there and try and get people to be interested in us. If you go out there and be interested in them, guess what? The right people at the right time will come back and be interested in you. It's not a 100% game. It's not one-to-one. Just because I pay attention to your posts doesn't mean that you'll always pay attention to mine. But the more that you put out there, the more that you show interest in other people, the more people will come back and look at you. Make sure that your profiles tell people what you do. Make sure that you also talk about what you do, because that's the start of the process. Google talks about the 0 moment of truth, and it's worth mentioning it to you folk. It's the thing that you do. My 19-year-old son does it more than me, to be fair, but it's the thing that you do outside a restaurant that you've never been in. It's the thing that you do when you're investigating a holiday. You check out the reviews. You look at what people are saying about it. The Google 0 moment of truth is that point at which people are just about to make a decision on something, and they check it out before they make the decision to buy. They check it out before they pick up the phone to you. So make sure, as well as being interested in other people, that you do share the stuff that's out there, that you do talk about the witch reviews, that you are, on social media, proud of what you do for a living. One of the questions that I get asked a lot is whether people should separate their personal profiles and their the business profiles on Facebook and places. My strong suggestion would be no. Be one person who's also proud of what you do for a living. I talk about my real life and I talk about my business as well. Both, because when people check me out, they can see that I'm a person. I've spent a lot of time being interested in them. Sometimes people check me out because they're into the same rock bands as me. There's about 150 people in here and not one person is, but nevertheless, some people are, I promise. None of my family are either. It might be that they're now interested in booking a speaker. It might be that they're now interested in saving money. But make sure that when they come back and check you out, that your profile talks about who you are, and you're also talking about the business as well. Talk about case studies. Talk about the people that you've helped save money. Talk about your lifestyle and what it's meant to you. Talk about all of this stuff, because that helps with that Google 0 moment of truth. You never know what might be the one thing that someone reads it and says, what, so they can do this business and still pick the kids up from school and go to sports day? Right, maybe I want to have a look at that. It might be that someone thinks, oh, right, so they did it because they realized their pensions weren't enough. I might want to have a look at that. You never know what will be the one thing on your profile that suddenly tips people over the edge and they think, oh, great, now I understand. So don't hesitate to engage with other people, to talk about your stuff, and to show your personality as well. It's really important. This is why you shouldn't split up your personal and business profile. That's Sharon and me. The photo's a bit blurred. I enjoy live music, it's fair to say, a bit more than Sharon does. I enjoy getting down the front of gigs. That's Whitney Music Festival, happens to be a particularly good photo, and I shared that on LinkedIn and talked about my love of live music. And I can't remember now, but there were over 6,000 people who had engaged with that post the last time I looked. So what's the point of that? Well, it reminded a load of people that I existed, people who hadn't seen my posts, and then people who had engaged with my post about live music, then got served by LinkedIn my next posts about me speaking, about the courses that I run and that sort of thing, show your personality. Be a person as well as be in the business. It's really, really important. Even on a professional place like LinkedIn, it's really important to be a person, to be a human being as well as the personality itself. Something that I would strongly advocate, particularly in this room, is becoming part of your local community. Some of you already will be. I used to be a Cub Scout leader. Anyone else from the Scouting Association in here? Yeah, there's usually one or two. I used to be a Cub Scout leader myself. It's lovely to meet you. I became part of the community. You might be part of the PTA. You might be a governor. You may be on other committees or things like that. The other untapped resource which is out there massively are things like local Facebook groups. In Witney, we've got Spotted Witney. I bet you've all got something similar. You've all got a group where people actually go and take photographs of people who are parked badly. Have you got that in your town? Yeah, you've all got that in your town. Look at this outside Sainsbury's, taking up 2 spaces. We've all got those local Facebook groups. I speak for Oxford Brookes University because I got involved in the I Love Witney Facebook group. And I got involved. I became part of not only the local Witney community, that's where we live, but the local Facebook group as well. I wasn't posting adverts. I just got involved. Someone came and looked at my profile from Oxford Brookes and said, would you come and speak to our third-year students? And 4 years later, I'm still doing that gig and being paid for it once a year to go and talk to their students because I got involved in my local community. I didn't do it just to win business, but it was a really healthy side effect of me being involved in there as well. People came back to look at what I do. Oh, that guy speaks. Let's talk to him about who else are people going to choose if they want to switch their utilities. If people want to book a speaker, they now know who I am. They know I live locally. Who are people going to choose if they want to switch their utilities or if they want to start a part-time business? If they've got to know you, I get booked for speaking gigs, and people, when I ask people why they booked me, they say because we felt like we already knew you. Because I put effort into my relationships online so that people get to know me over time. Once people get to feel like they already know you, that's a massive build-up of the trust, an absolutely huge build-up of the trust. And you can be the first people that someone thinks of, the first person that someone thinks of when they want to start a business or save money. The authority of content. I am becoming the authority in networking because I talk about it so much. Talk about your stuff. Talk about the witch reviews. Talk about the case studies. Talk about who you've helped. All of this stuff helps you become the authority in your community about saving money on your bills or about starting a part-time business. How much easier do you think it is for me to secure a speaking gig about networking when someone else says, oh, you should speak to Stefan Thomas, or someone else recommends me or refers me? How much easier is it for you to sign someone up when someone else says, oh, I dealt with these folk, they were really helpful? Those posts that I see on my Facebook about someone who's gone in and helped someone set up their router, for example, I saw one just the other day, someone from UW actually going in and helping someone set up their router to get it going. Doing it is lovely and caring and a brilliant thing to do. Talking about it is genius. Because how many people are looking at that and thinking, well, God, my mum just got sent a router in a brown cardboard box and was left to set it up on her own. Talk about this stuff. Become the authority on saving people money, on utilities, on starting a part-time business. Whatever it is, you have such an opportunity to talk about this in real life and online now. And obviously, in the last few years, online has become a massive part of the business for all of us. Don't ever forget to show people the till. Always remember to show people where the till is. I started work in shoe shops. This is a photo of boots because it was just the best photo that I could get, saying, please pay here. But if you go into any fashion retailer anywhere, I quite like TK Maxx. We spent a bit of time in Birmingham earlier on in the week. It's got Europe's largest Primark. Did you know that? Yeah, Europe's largest Primark in Birmingham. Four floors. And a Greggs, like a marriage made in heaven. A Greggs inside a Primark. But if you go around Primark, on every floor somewhere, it says, please pay here. They tell you where to conclude doing business. Are you doing that in your business? As well as all of this lovely other stuff that I've talked about, where some people really trip themselves up, and it comes from a bit of nervousness or a bit of a lack of confidence sometimes, is by saying to people, I'll tell you what, shall we grab a coffee and talk about that? Shall we go ahead then? Remember to show people the till. Even if you have to swallow your confidence a little bit at first and do it, it does become easier. But showing people the till for small businesses in the UK and for people running businesses and people running part-time businesses in the UK, showing people the till is something that we really get a bit icky about and like to hide it away. I could help you with that. Shall we grab a coffee and talk about it? One of the things that I learned back in the shoe shop, I wanted to sell more Scotchgard than anyone else, because if we sold Scotchgard, we got to go home early. The biggest seller of Scotchgard every week got to go home early. True story. Half an hour early. My bus went at 39 minutes past the hour. So if I got out of work at 6 o'clock, I got the 6:39 bus. If I got out half an hour early at 5:30, I could run to the bus stop and get the 5:39 bus, get home a full hour early for selling the most Scotchgard on a Saturday. So I sold a lot of Scotchgard by asking everyone. That's when I learned. I asked everyone. No special tricks, no special questions. I asked everyone, and most of the people in the shoe shop chose who they would ask. Oh, they're only buying a £9 pair of shoes. They probably won't buy it. I won't bother asking. Don't edit your list. Ask people. Remember to show them the till. Don't judge for other people. Give them or credit them with the intelligence to decide for themselves, but at least give them the opportunity to see what you do and to be introduced to what you do. So many of us make that decision for other people and just don't ask because we think that they won't go ahead and talk ourselves out of it. Remember to show people the till. And I know I'm on safe ground here in the middle of the country. Are you all familiar with DFS? Yeah. So when does their sale end? Right. Same question in 2016, same answer. Same answer wherever I go. I'm 53 years old. I do not remember a time when DFS didn't have a sale on. You all know that DFS sell sofas? Yep. Right, you all know that they've got a sale on? Yep. Right, it's Saturday. Bearing in mind that you all know that, why do DFS take up the most expensive piece of real estate on television in between Britain's Got Talent tonight to tell you stuff that you already know about them? Always one person not using them. The other thing is that 18 months ago, Sharon and I weren't thinking about buying a corner sofa. So the adverts just went over our heads. Now we're thinking about buying a corner sofa because we've redesigned one of the rooms. Now we need to go and look at sofas. Someone may well have seen your adverts, but it's just white noise because they're not thinking about doing anything right now, or they don't feel they need to, or their current provider hasn't upset them, or they're completely secure in their job. Now, DFS advertise all the time because they want to be front of mind at the point at which you think about buying a sofa. So make sure that you repeat your messages. Make sure that you know that this isn't just go home today, do what Steph says, it'll work. It's go home today, do the stuff consistently, and it will work. And that really is the difference between the people who really, really made a success of this, that they've done stuff consistently and over again. But none of this matters. None of this matters. Nothing that you'll hear this weekend matters if you don't do anything different starting on Monday or starting when you get back to your business. Look at this weekend in terms of what does this make possible? What else can I do? How can I slightly change things? How can I do things slightly differently? How could I try something new and just see if it worked? Because the real opportunity in all of this is that most people won't bother. So many people chose not to come here this weekend. True story. So many people will come here this weekend and then won't change anything. That's absolutely fine. But the best way to actually get results out of any of this is to do something. The real opportunity is that most people won't bother. You don't have to be loads better than other people. You just have to do a little bit more than them. One of the ways that I've got on is doing a little bit more than other people because I noticed that the real opportunity is that most people don't bother. Be the people who do bother. Be the people who go out there and change something. If you've liked what I've had to say, by the way, feel free to connect with me. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever it happens to be. Because if you have been feeling that you haven't been getting this quite right, if you have been feeling that you could be doing this better, the brilliant news is that it doesn't matter. I was brought up with this false belief that you only got one chance to make an impression. I've done something like 1,500 networking events over time. And what I fell in love with this whole environment is that this was the place where I got a second chance, or even these days a 1,500th chance to make an impression. Thank you all very much for listening. Thank you. Stop! Stop right now. Stop. I'm 53, right? Who else remembers when they used to have talent shows on Saturday night and they would have a clapometer? Anyone else remember that? Where whether the talent went through to the next round was based on how loud the applause was. Right. I promise this isn't just to get me more applause. Honestly-ish. But think about this. On a scale of 1 to 10, on the invisible clapometer, just for you, not as a collective, how loud was your clap? How enthusiastic was your clap? 0 to 10. Give yourself a score. 9-ish? 5? I've got 3 going on over there. Think about this when you go back to your business, whether it's your full-time business, whether it's your part-time business. Think about this when you go back after the weekend. Are you giving it a 6 out of 10 that day? Because we all do, but just notice it. If you're giving yourself a 6 out of 10, notch that up to a 7, notch that up to an 8. And remember it by doing this. That was a false end. This bit is the real end. Make sure that now you enjoy the rest of the weekend. Make sure that you take loads away from Power Up, but give yourselves a 10 out of 10 out of 10. Thank you, Team Purple. Thank you. That's better. Thank you, folks. Thank you very much. Thank you for all being here. I know that you've got other places to be. I hope I've given you plenty of time. Thank you all for coming along again.